Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap, and this viewing party was for All Stars 10 episode 9, and the guests this week were Alyssa Hunter and Kween Kong. So today we're going to be talking about Naysha Lopez calls out Violet Chachki and Gottmik for some comments they made about Roscoe's. Kween Kong addresses whether she was, quote, malicious on Global All-Stars. And Alyssa Hunter reveals that someone made her walk out of the workroom and cry. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. And before we start, if you've been enjoying these Roscoe's recaps all season, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's free and it supports my channel more than you realise, so if you do like these videos, please do me a favour and subscribe. Thank you! So they started out and Naysha said she wanted to ask Alyssa about the fight that happened in the workroom. But she said she wants Alyssa to think about what she says because, quote, according to Tweedledee and Tweedledum, I don't want you to risk your career here at Roscoe's. And she said she would later respond to, quote, those two little hoes. Just to explain in case you don't know what Naysha is referring to, Violet Chachki and Gottmik have a podcast called No Gorge, and in the most recent episode, Violet and Gottmik were saying that they don't understand why queens go to Roscoe's and spill the tea and risk their careers.
No, I mean, that actually needs to be studied, that some of these girls are ready to risk it all
to sit on a patio chair at some bar while they monetize.
Doesn't pay them to monetize. Like,
the bar is monetizing boots on y'all's, like, basically spilling the tea. Like, get a podcast, girl. Like, monetize. Why are you letting them monetize all the tea? Stop doing that.
Stop risking your careers for Roscoe.
For Roscoe's.
Back to Roscoe's, and later in the viewing party, Naysha said she couldn't talk about this topic, but then near the end of the viewing party, she said she'd been given permission to talk about it, and everyone cheered. Naysha started out by saying, quote, Violet and Gottmik, two of the nicest queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, although this was clearly sarcastic. Naysha reiterated what Violet and Gottmik had said about Roscoe's, and then she said she would respond to it. Firstly, Naysha said Roscoe's is one of the best places you could ever work, and not only do they treat the queens really well, but they also pay all of the queens and the guests really well for coming to Roscoe's because they know what the queens are worth. In terms of the part about Roscoe's ruining the queens' careers, Naysha said they've had almost every queen from the show as a guest at Roscoe's, and not one of them has had their career ruined as a result. She also said that at Roscoe's, Naysha often says what the queens are not allowed to say, presumably because of the contract and things like that, and Naysha knows what they are and are not allowed to say, so the queens are not risking their careers. But also, the Roscoe's viewing parties give the queens an opportunity to talk about themselves without being edited, and also tell their side of things, so the audience gets to know the queens better, which is why the queens love coming to Roscoe's. Naysha ended by addressing Violet and Gottmik and said, quote, mean what you say and say what you mean. Don't imply because that's just lying. And she also said that Violet and Gottmik have both been at Roscoe's, so they know what it's like. Naysha then said, quote, when I see you two gentlemen, keep that same energy. Because Naysha explained that she saw one of them at a bar recently, and when they saw Naysha, they apparently turned around and ran away from her, and everyone cheered and laughed. Okay, going on with the rest of the viewing party, and they watched the part of this week's episode when the queens came back into the workroom the next day, and Ginger voiced that she was upset with Alyssa because Alyssa said she thought Denali would win the lip sync. And Daya said she felt like Alyssa was being hypocritical and not doing what she said she would because Alyssa did not give her MVQ point to Daya. But Daya said in Untucked, Alyssa said she would give her point to the queen who was the most consistent, which Daya said was her. But Alyssa said she felt like Cynthia did better. Naysha asked Alyssa, was there more to the fight that we didn't see? Alyssa explained that she was in shock during that moment because she did not expect for Ginger and Daya to come for her like that. But then Alyssa said she sort of did expect it because apparently in the morning when the queens were travelling from the hotel to the studio, neither Ginger nor Daya said good morning or anything to Alyssa, which Alyssa thought was odd. Then, apparently, they waited until the cameras were on to spill the tea, which shocked Alyssa. Alyssa reiterated that she went to All Stars to play fair and to give her points to the most consistent queen, which in Alyssa's opinion was Cynthia. Alyssa then said, quote, "If she was upset and she was mad, that's her fault. I don't know, that's her thing." She also added that she wasn't fake, and she also didn't tell Ginger she didn't deserve to win. She just said that she was gagged because on set, the vibe was apparently very Denali, and even the staff were that way as well. Caramel said that she was confused because earlier Daya had said that you can give your point to whoever and she'll respect it, but she won't forget. But it seems like she did get upset at Alyssa, and it seemed like she was only upset because she didn't get a point. Alyssa said Daya wants to, quote, create drama, and she came after the underdog because she thought that Alyssa wouldn't be able to defend herself because English isn't her first language. But then Alyssa said, quote, "Guess what B word? I ate her," and everyone in the audience cheered. Alyssa also said, quote, to me, she is still the B word," and everyone laughed again. They moved on and talked about this week's Maxi Challenge, which was an improv challenge where the queens were dogs. Alyssa shared that although they may not have known it, Ginger actually helped Alyssa a lot in the challenge, and Alyssa knew that Ginger was going to do better than her, but Ginger still made her feel really comfortable. They asked Queen Kong if she likes an improv challenge, and Queen Kong said, quote, "If anyone watched Global All Stars, sorry," and everyone laughed. Queen then said that some people lived for her, but the majority did not live for her. However, Queen added that if many of the queens from Global All Stars had to go up against queens like Mistress, then Queen Kong said, quote, "If I'm the bully, then what the F are they? And this is the thing, I was real nice." And she added that shade is a form of endearment, and that's how you have fun in an improv challenge, because Ru doesn't really care about the acting, Ru just wants to laugh. They watched the challenge performances, and Alyssa said she thinks that she did okay, but she knows that she's not a funny queen, and she actually thought Acid did really well. Batty Davis then asked Alyssa if the drama that happened earlier in the workroom with Ginger and Daya affected Alyssa in the challenge. Alyssa shared that after the drama happened at the table, they had to go and line up for RuPaul to walk into the workroom, but Alyssa said she walked out of the workroom and went straight to the bathroom and started to cry. But she forgot that she was mic'd, so the producers could hear her crying, and they were waiting for her outside the bathroom when she came out. So Alyssa explained to the producers that she came to All Stars to have fun and to do her best, but she didn't want to look mad on TV because of her fans and her family, and presumably that's why she went to the bathroom to cry instead. And she said she hates seeing herself fighting on TV, and she hates fighting and drama in general. So Alyssa said this was all on her mind when they went into the challenge. Caramel then asked whether they gave the queens a prompt to bring a dog outfit with them because all of the queens had such detailed dog outfits. Alyssa said yes, they told them beforehand which dog character they would be, so Alyssa joked that the queens have to pretend that they find out which character they are on set, but in reality they all knew which character they were going to be and they had brought outfits for them. They asked Queen if she would like to come back for an All-Stars with the bracket format, and Queen said yes, which then led on to her talking about the drama on Global All-Stars. Queen repeated that she knows how to fight and she did not fight on Global All-Stars, and she said she was actually really nice. But when you watch it back, you think, quote, "I was wrong in that moment, I'm a human, we're giving TV, it's part of the job." She added that some people signed up and said that they've worked with this production company before, so they know how to play to the cameras, but some of the other people didn't necessarily know how to do that, so they, quote, "take it personally," and Queen thinks that this new format works really well. They moved on and talked about their favourites in the challenge this week, and they said that Ginger and Acid Betty were the top two in their opinion. Alyssa then said, quote, "I'm a real person, even though I don't like her, but Daya did a very good job too," and people kind of gasped and laughed a bit. But Alyssa said she's being real. Then she said, quote, "She was not the best because she is playing the same person that she is, a B word." But she said she was surprised by how good Acid was. Naysha asked if the prosthetic noses that some of the queens were wearing were done by someone else, and Alyssa said no, they had to put it on themselves, but it was their choice if they wanted to wear it or not. But she said that the noses were a nightmare to do, and Alyssa's nose apparently started to come off, so Alyssa ended up cutting some of the hair off her wig and sticking it over the seams of the prosthetic so you wouldn't be able to tell that it was coming off. And Alyssa joked that she looked more like a cat than a dog. They moved on to the runway looks for this week, and the category was paper dolls. Alyssa shared that they told the queens that the outfit had to be 100% paper. But Alyssa said that some of the queens, and she's not going to say names, but then she said Daya Betty and everyone laughed, but apparently Daya used fabric like a corset and then glued every single piece of paper to that. And although Alyssa thought that Daya's look was stunning, when she saw it she thought, quote, "B word, no, you broke the rules." Cara shared a fun fact that this is actually the third outfit that she's helped someone with that's then been on Drag Race. And she helped to cut out the pieces and fold them, and she said they did use paper, but Alyssa is right that there was also a corset inside. Naysha then joked and said, quote, "I love that you helped her cheat," and everyone laughed. They watched the judges' critiques and then the lip sync, and everyone seemed to think that Daya should have not been in the top and Acid Betty should have been in the top instead. Naysha said if we do the math, if Acid had been in the top instead, depending on if she won the lip sync or not, she would have ended up tying for points with Daya and Denali, and if that were the case, you would have no idea who was going to advance. Whereas this way, with Daya in the top, it's more of a guarantee. Naysha then jokingly said, quote, "just an observation." Cara also pointed out that during the lip sync, the queens at the back were, from left to right, Denali, Alyssa, Acid and Cynthia. But then, when they lined up on stage to give out their points, it was then Cynthia, Denali, Alyssa and Acid. And Alyssa said yeah, she wasn't going to mention this, but they noticed it. And presumably what they were saying was they switched the order that the queens were standing in to make it more exciting when they were revealing the points. Naysha said whenever she calls out production stuff like this, people in the comments tell her to shut up and say that we all know it's a produced show. But Naysha said her point is that we should not be able to tell that it's being produced and they shouldn't make it so obvious. They then watched this week's Untucked, and at one point, Daya brought up the issue of Alyssa not giving her MVQ point again, which caused some drama. Batty then said that they need a spin-off of Daya and Alyssa at this point, and Alyssa said, quote, "I'm tired." Naysha said she loves Daya, but she felt like in this episode it was, quote, "not the best look for her," because Daya kept talking about the point. But she added that Alyssa had already made it clear why she thought Cynthia did better, which is why she gave her the point, so there was nothing more to discuss. And Naysha asked Alyssa how frustrated she was on set. Alyssa said she was actually worried about how this was going to be edited because Daya was the, quote, "troublemaker" on their season. Alyssa added that she thinks Daya is doing it on purpose, she questioned why she was doing it, and she needs to move on and get over it. Alyssa added that she loves Daya's art and she's a great drag queen, but, quote, "as a person, meh, I don't like her," and everyone laughed. Alyssa added, quote, "because I don't trust people when the cameras are on, they're like, I'm gonna play the B word, I'm gonna play the fake. No, just be real." Cara asked if she thinks Daya is still the B word, and Alyssa said yes, but Alyssa did clarify that she doesn't hate Daya and she actually loves her. They moved on to the Q&A, and one of the VIP questions was, does Queen Kong blame the edit for what we saw on Global All Stars, or did she really mean to be as malicious as it seemed? And people gasped and laughed when this question was asked because it sounded so shady. Also, just in case any of you did not watch Global All Stars, I did do a compilation video where I went through all of the various dramas that happened, and I'll link to that compilation in the description if you want to know the background behind this. In answer to the question, Kween said she knew what she signed up for, so she never blames the edit, but she said that she was, quote, surprised at some of the context that was left out. Kween explained that as the only Indigenous queen on that cast, she didn't like that she was put in a group of the English-speaking queens, because if we're being real, the reason they speak English in Australia and New Zealand is because of colonisation. Then, in terms of the malicious stuff, Kween said she thinks there was a difference in cultures and shade is a big thing, especially in ballroom, which is the background Kween comes from. And it's not from a place of hatred, they just like to not take everything so seriously. So Kween said she wasn't saying anything to be malicious, and she mentioned specifically Nalenya, presumably because that was the queen that she seemed to have the most issues with. Apparently, behind the cameras, Kween was actually probably the one who was, quote, holding her down because she was really falling apart, meaning Nalenya. What they showed on camera, Kween knew it was purely for entertainment, but she said some of the queens really took it too far online against Kween, and she never really responded to them because that's not her thing. However, Kween said she did, quote, struggle with the narrative that was being pushed about me, but that's what she signed up for, and no one forced her to go on the show, and she was really proud of what she did on the show, regardless of whether people wanted to see her or not. She also said she understands that with the cultural differences, some of the European queens may not understand, but she can learn from the mistakes, and if she ever competed against them again, she would change her approach. Kween ended by saying that people know who she is and know her heart and know what she's about, but you will see her again and she'll be just as unapologetic. And the queens who said that they, quote, tried to get me disqualified, lol, you didn't. And she also said that you should say things to people's faces. Finally, an audience member asked Alyssa about her talent show number on season 14, which was a lip sync, and the question was, did production let them pick the song, or did they have to pick from a list? Alyssa said they only gave them 1 week to prepare for the talent show, so it was very last minute. So for the queens who did the lip syncs, they gave them a list of around 10 songs to choose from. Alyssa shared that the reason the talent show was so last minute was because they actually cancelled one runway, although she didn't give any details about what it was. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for All Stars 10 episode 9. Which of the brackets was your favourite overall? And who do you think will win the crown? Let me know in the comments. Also, I'd like to give a special shout out to my latest Patreon member, Tyler Lee R, who joined in the You're a Winner Baby tier. Tyler, you are a winner, baby. If you'd like early access to my videos, access to the exclusive Patreon chat, as well as exclusive content, please consider checking out my Patreon. It just costs a few dollars a month and it really helps support the channel. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to all of my new Patreon members, as well as my incredible existing Patreon members. Your support is truly so amazing, and I'm thankful every day to have such an amazing community. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your support more than you know. Please make sure you like and comment on this video to help boost it in the algorithm and promote it to more people. And please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you like this video and want to be notified when I post more videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me in the future for more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. Thank you so much. Bye.